Hey everyone, it's Ivan, kitbadger.com, out here with part 2 of the Finnish Brutality 2025 Fire and Ice, the Winter War. Picking up where I had left off, I was already up north at the range up in Lopi, and essentially that first day we were there, which I guess would be Friday, was the RO match. Everyone shot through, and then come Saturday and Sunday, it was the main match. And so this match during the winter, unlike the usual Finnish Brutality in kind of mid-late summer, you have to contend with weather. And so it actually kind of worked out probably the best it could possibly work out, in that there wasn't as much snow as there usually is there. So they actually had to bring in snow on 2 of the stages where they were skiing and basically build it up because people were going to be skiing on it. For the most of it though, for the rest of it, like there was more or less snow on everything, like kind of turned to ice, but there wasn't a ton of snow. And as fun as it would be to have a ton of snow in a competition like that, the first 1 or 2 people in each stage, they get the fun part of it. And then after that, you're basically just following a track. So if you have 3 feet of snow or 2 inches of snow like we had, very quickly it just turns into the 2 inches of snow, just because everyone's following the same track for courses of fire. So weather-wise, as far as snow, actually worked out well. And then on top of that, it was definitely cold. And so usually during Finnish Brutality, during the summer, man, some of those stages are just like a smoke fest. Fortunately this year, none of them were brutal because everyone had to contend with weather, which largely was around like 15 degrees like most of the time. And so the last thing you want to do is wet everything out and then wait like 45 minutes till your next stage, at which point you end up becoming a casualty of cold. So getting into the stages. Well, before I get into the stages, I will say, if you want to actually check out the stages in their entirety, there will end up being videos to all of those stages, just uncut stages, if you want to see how I did or how well I did not do it, any of the stages. But yeah, we'll go ahead and get started with stage 1. I was competing with the media squad, which honestly was pretty fun. There were so many of us though, it actually got broken up into 2 different squads, one competing in the morning, one competing in the afternoon. And so, man, such a well-run competition. I say that because everything was on time, which is incredible, especially some of the stages where there's a lot of moving parts. But stage 1, first thing in the morning, out there on skis. And I watched a bunch of people in front of me basically go, and some people crashed pretty hard. By the time I got up there, I'm like, all right, plan. Let's just not crash. Like, let's try and not fall down. But the bigger plan for honestly the entire Brutality event, for me personally, was let's not get penalties. Penalties, you almost can't come back from. It's 60 seconds per penalty, which is really significant for your overall time. So I was like, hey, let's try and not get penalties. So got after with that first stage. And the way it starts is you are on skis, basically fit to you, you have your poles, and you're essentially shooting from a number of different positions and then skiing between positions. And at each of those respective positions, you need to demonstrate a different technique. Some you could do whatever you want, but other ones you needed to demonstrate a specific technique, whether it was shooting off of both of your poles together, almost like a monopod, or creating a bipod with your skis. And yeah, you had to basically shoot through that course. I ended up managing to not fall down and didn't get any penalties, so safe on that stage. Moving on from there, we went to stage 2, which again, really fun stage. This one, you're basically driving and shooting from a quad. So it would start out, there was a couple different targets, and you would engage the targets. Once you engage your targets, you drop the magazine, engage the target or engage one of the targets rather, which would clear your gun out. At that point, your gun's now safe, and you'd move over to the next target, or the next station rather. You drive over there on the quad. Then again, load your gun back up, engage your targets, drop your magazine for that last shot, get that shot, and drive on to the next staging point where again, repeat. And this went through that entire course of fire. Again, really fun stage. Then heading down to stage 3, medical stage. I really appreciate how they actually incorporate medicine, like battlefield medicine, into their competitions with a meaningful metric. And so stage starts, you run down, go ahead, get in a prone position from firing position, shoot, gets your hits on the steel, at which point you end up dragging this dummy to safety. Once you drag the dummy to safety, you then turn, again, playing a little bit of make-believe. Now your patient is over here, is bleeding out, hemorrhaging. So you end up taking the tourniquet, put the tourniquet on there, and I definitely probably spent a little more time on, like, man, I was expecting to break that windlass. It was so tight. And finally, I probably could have been fine with it without that last turn, but I thought, finally got it, secured that tourniquet, then got back on my gun, engage targets. After you engage those targets, get up, head down to another firing position, and from there, basically finish out the stage. Again, another really fun stage. Which then brings us to stage 4, which was actually the blind stage. I had walked by it the previous day when I was watching the staff match. I didn't even know it was a blind stage. I just never went over to check it out. And it was pretty cool. Like, it was tricky. And so the way it worked is you're in the back of this APC, on the buzzer, you come around, and the fighting position is a barricade. So you get behind the barricade, and there's ports, low, medium, and then high, numbered, and you have to cycle through those. And once you get your hit there, you come over to another shooting box, and you have to shoot a popper down. Shoot the popper down, go back over, another shot from the barricade, come over, shoot the popper down until all the poppers are knocked down. And if you miss the popper, then you got to go back to the barricade. And if you miss from the barricade, you have to go to another shooting position, which I definitely did that, get your hit, and then go shoot the popper down. And so it was tough because the way it was set up, you didn't really have much room to negotiate the barricade very well because it was right in front of this APC. And then the other part is the slots were pretty narrow. I definitely screwed myself on putting the suppressor touching the barricade. I didn't feel like there was that much pressure, but there was definitely enough to shank those rounds. And you can only shoot the one, and if you miss, you have to go to the penalty box to get your hit, to go back over, but either way, ground through it. And finally, stage 5, last stage of day 1, which glad it was the last stage, as you will find out. This one basically starts, you have to go climb into this, essentially a cold plunge tank, and it wasn't like freezing. It's probably, I don't know, if I had to guess, it's probably around like 40 degrees or something. They couldn't have it super cold because it's actually supposed to be a hot tub, and so they had to keep it at least warm enough to where the pipes wouldn't freeze for it. And so you're sitting in this probably like 40 degrees in whatever, you had to basically wear a base layer, some outer garment to include gloves, beanie, and then of course eye pro, ear pro, and you were using a stage gun. So they actually had some of the new Sako rifles, ARs, that they're, I believe, in a down select to field for the Finnish military. So that was going to be the stage rifle. And it started, your hands on your knees, so submerged in the water. On the buzzer, you'd reach over, you'd grab the gun. Keep in mind, this gun is ambient, so 15 degrees or so. So your hands, your gloves, your wet gloves are like sticking to the metal on this thing, like sticking to the selector and whatnot. But you basically go over to one side where you can see there's a array of 5 different targets, and I think you have 12 rounds. So you need to shoot through, 1 hit on each, come back to the other side and shoot through. So a total of 10 hits with a maximum of 12 rounds. I ended up actually missing some, and well, I guess we'll speak to this right now. So I ended up actually missing some. And one of those, cool, I'll own that. But some of them, I was like, man, how am I missing that target? Like, I just hit that target. And we'll finish the stage and we'll come back to this, I guess. So once you finish, whether you get all your hits or you run out of ammo, you hand the weapon back, you climb out of the tank, soaking wet, and then you run back. And so you could either do it the easy way or you could do it hard mode. The easy way is you basically strip down, you go in the sauna, rewarm, like put on dry clothes, all that stuff. The hard way, which everyone was voluntold they were going to do it the hard way, basically run back to this kind of like staging area where you have whatever you're going to change into, strip all your wet clothes off, throw your dry clothes on. After that, there's a bunch of fire making materials. And so you need to get a fire going and then get water boiling. That was the metric for it. And so, yeah, ran over there, stripped off all of my wet clothes, threw dry stuff straight on, and got after it, getting that fire going. But the stage did not end there. And the reason I say it didn't is one of the other people shooting was Micah Mayfield, another content creator, good guy, and yeah, fun hanging out with him. And he brought up, because I shot my stage and then I went and did the fire thing, and like that was the end of it. And he came back and he's like, man, like, do you think you missed it? And I was like, I don't know, like one of them I might have shanked. And he's like, yeah, you were like 3 feet off the left of your time. I'm like, really? And it's like, dang. And start talking with him. He like wasn't hitting anything. He hit like 1 or 2 out of 10 total hits. And he eventually just handed the gun back. He's like, your gun's not zeroed, man. And I was like, man, I don't know. And so sure enough, people started to look into it, because if you looked at our squad, the first 2 shooters shot really good, like clean. And then someone missed 1. I think I missed 2. And then it just like went off the rails after that. Sure enough, the gun was way off. They actually printed it on paper, and yeah, the group, it was significantly off. And so they came back and they were like, hey, do you want to shoot it again? Like they offered Micah and anyone else. And Micah's like, yeah, I want to shoot this. And sure enough, he went and shot it clean after that. And he's like, you going to go reshoot? And I'm like, man, you know what I don't want to do right this minute is put on wet clothes and go climb back in that thing and shoot it. And I'm like, all right, like these are the only penalties I have, which is 2, which is 120 seconds. Let's go do this thing. So I ended up going, getting back in there, and yeah, shot, got all 10 hits, did not have to go do the fire again, because they're like, hey, you already did the thing. We know you did that thing. You don't have to repeat that. So, man, cold time in there, but definitely worth it to get those 120 seconds back. Which then brings us to day 2, the last 5 stages. So, start out in the morning on stage 6, shooting pistol. Definitely not my strong suit, but it was honestly a really fun stage. You basically had this like big snowplow shovel, and you had to get a big scoop, pull it out, get it to the other side, dump all the snow, go over, and there was a dueling tree. Basically draw out, shoot through the dueling tree, ground your pistol, scoop snow, back over, back to the dueling tree, and basically repeat this for a number of times through. It's actually honestly a really simple but really fun stage, and yeah, ground my way through it. Next up was our second stage, so I guess stage 7. Really fun, again, back on skis. And this time there was actually a polk, so think basically you're pulling a sled that's actually fairly heavy, is weighted. And the ROs did an incredible job on this stage. There's so much going on, and they had it down. It was just this series of people like, hey, I'm gonna help size your skis to your feet. I'm gonna get these on. Someone else is gonna get this on here. Hold your arms out here. We'll put this vest on you. Really well done, seamless, because that would turn into just a monster as far as like a time suck. And yeah, they did a great job getting people through there. And so the way it would work is once on the buzzer, you basically ski over into the first bay, engage targets, drop your magazine, retain it, high value shot. If you miss it, 60-second penalty. You can of course attempt to reshoot it, but then you got to take your magazine out again. And then once you engage there, that bay, there's I think 3 targets. You move to the next bay. There's a series of 3 targets there. Move to the next bay, and I believe there was another 3 targets. And again, it ended when you dropped your magazine and fired that final round to clear your gun into the target. And you can, if you want, it's better than a 60-second penalty, reload and chamber a round, drop your mag, fire another round, which I'm pretty sure I had to do that on my very last target, if memory serves, but fun stage out there. And then stage 8, man, another amazing stage. So this one, there's a prop gun, basically an AK with a bayonet. So many of those things broke. They probably had at least half a dozen of these things break. But the way it was set up is you would go up to on the buzzer, you'd go up, you draw out and engage targets. One of the targets, there's actually 2 no shoots, and there isn't necessarily a time penalty for shooting them, other than if you shoot one and knock it down, you have to clear your pistol out, go up there, set it back up, come back, charge your pistol until you get your hit. But once you basically shoot through that pistol steel, I think 4 hits, 1, 1, 1, 1, then you go back. And the way technically it works is they have these bayonet targets. So basically big, long pieces of birch wrapped with some material, and you take your stage gun, stab into them, drive them back until they hit this back bar, at which point that's like the go, no-go gauge. Engage all 3, come up, back to the line, shoot, bayonet, shoot, bayonet. So I was like, well, I'm carrying this pretty sweet battle axe from Amtech Blades, so I just left that stage gun slung, drew out my battle axe, went up, immediately chopped into it, like buried this thing, just because honestly I wanted to. I knew this was going to be a total waste of time with respect to being competitive, but man, am I trying to be competitive or have fun? Like, the answer is have fun. So once I pulled that thing out, because of the way the battle axes, there's basically this front spike, 2-handed, drive that thing in, run those all the way back, 1, 2, 3, back up, do my shooting, run back, some more battle axe work, tons of fun on that course. Stage 9 was arguably the most like brutality stage there was, in that there was a kettlebell. It was basically a Carda drill. And the way it was set up, you had this kettlebell on this giant rope, and you would chuck it. It needed to cross a certain threshold line, at which point you had to drag it back to where you were, and then you had to make your way through this VTAC barricade, shooting through all, I think there were 9 different ports, getting hits on 2 different pieces of steel. And then when you're done, or when you're done shooting through a port rather, go ahead and place your gun inside this box, which, man, that totally bit me. So I listened to the stage brief, and the way I understood is like the muzzle needs to be inside this box pointed downrange. No, like the entire gun needs to be inside that box. So I got sent back a couple times because like my stock was out of the box or something like that. Whatever. Bad on me, I guess. No one else, well, I don't know. Hopefully no one else made that mistake after shooting after me. But yeah, basically work through. And so chuck the kettlebell, drag it back, shoot through the port, kettlebell, port, back and forth till you get through all 9 ports. Pretty fun stage. I will say definitely gassed out by the time I was done with that one. Which brings us to last and final, stage 10. Probably one of the coolest stages. So you start out in the back of the Sisu, which is basically almost kind of like an MRAP type vehicle. Thing's actually really cool. And on the buzzer, you get down and you have to crawl through at that point, which is basically nothing but ice, essentially like this little trench. It's made with tires, and there's slats going across the top, so you can't just stand up and run or anything like that. But basically low crawl through there, and you get to a port, which you need to get the spinner over with the rifle. And man, first time I ever shot a spinner, that thing destroyed me. Fortunately, I've gotten a little better at it, end up shooting the spinner over, drop your mag, fire at the spinner again, clear the gun, and maintaining your mag and your gun. Finish your way getting through this course. Then the Molotov. Fortunately, in Finland, unlike in the US, Molotov cocktails, not illegal. So take this Molotov, you light it. Once that thing's lit, turn, chuck it into this vehicle. Honestly, I was just like, please break, please break. Like, I just need to throw this thing as hard as I can so it breaks. Because the previous day, I watched a lot of Molotovs not break. And depending on where you throw it and hit the vehicle, like, it just won't. Like, the glass is actually really strong. So chuck that thing, boom, explodes, a bunch of fire in there, go back around, back to the steel, and then to end it, you need to get hit on the top, hit on the bottom. Such a fun course of fire. Finnish Brutality, like Fire and Ice, Winter War Edition, so much fun. In part because it's all the things I actually love doing. Like if I wasn't over in Finland doing those things, shooting, skiing, lighting fires, all that stuff, I'd just be doing them up in North Idaho because I enjoy doing it and it's wintertime. The stages, so much fun, and yeah, just a great time over there. Incredible group of people, and part of it is the crowd that comes. Pretty much a lot of people from Finland, which they have an amazing shooting culture, in part because they have conscription service and they have a legitimate enemy that they share a border with. So everyone's on board. And a bunch of people from other countries too, like whether it's Sweden, Switzerland, Germany, like all over, Slovenia. And then of course the whole media squad, all those guys they're a riot, like a lot of really good people. And yeah, had an incredible time there. And then I ended up off of the prize table, which is actually cool too because it's a lottery. So no matter where you place, you stand the chance to go get, well, everyone pretty much gets awesome stuff. But I mean, even if you came in last, you could be the first person through the prize table. And I ended up actually getting this from Varustelika, filled with a bunch of like freeze-dried meals and I think some iPro and like a net gator, all kinds of cool stuff. Oh, and I have this cool patch on here, which James Reeves bought me because I saved his life loaning him some cold weather gear. So you're welcome, James, and thank you for the patch. But amazing time over there at Finnish Brutality. It's something that I get it. I'm not sure that someone would be like, man, I want to go through everything I need to go through to get over there as far as shipping guns and just flying over there and everything. But if you do, make a vacation of it because Finland is a really cool country to explore and just really cool people too. But yeah, if you're interested, of course, you can check out all of the, all of the gear I use. There'll be a link down below to that and all the individual runs through all the different courses of fire, or the different stages rather. But great time out there with good people. And as always, thanks for joining us at kitbatcher.com. Look forward to seeing you next time.